Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week.
There was times, so many times, I didn't want to be alive, and I couldn't shake what I saw, what I experienced. I just couldn't shake it out of my head. I couldn't find a distraction.
Whenever we've spoken, you've always been so open with your own sort of personal journey. And I truly believe that when you have these conversations, there will be many people who will go, that's how I feel.
I think there's going to be a lot of ex-squaddies now that are traumatized from Afghanistan. Their head's going to be rattling because mine is.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday as ever. If you're listening in for the first time, welcome. This is a podcast that talks about mental health in an open and hopefully an honest way. It's something we've been doing for a number of years now, something we continue to do on a weekly basis. We've got a really powerful guest on the way this week. I say on a weekly basis, a quick reminder that for England, we're heading into an August bank holiday weekend. So I'm away that week, so there will be no podcast for next week, unfortunately, but there will be, of course, an opportunity to dip back into any of the previous 200 plus episodes of Mental Health Monday that may well be worth checking out. So no podcast for next week, but we'll return at the start of September, and some really important conversations, I think, to have in the coming weeks and months. I think everyone has been really sort of shocked and surprised by everything that's been going on in Afghanistan. And one of the first people I thought of was somebody who we spoke to in, one of the first ever episodes of Mental Health Monday, actually, way back when. In episode 13, we caught up with Jay Wheeler. Now, Jay served in the military, he served in Afghanistan and various other places as well, and spoke about his experience after leaving the armed forces for reasons that he explains in the podcast, and how he had to find a way to live a different kind of life in a different kind of way. Jay's now responsible for the Love Art Global Movement, which will see the word love tagged around prominent locations. He's very big in Liverpool, and people know him there very well, and that's something that he has done ever since, and something he continues to do. We talk about that in the podcast. But I was thinking of Jay because, my goodness me, when you look at that situation in Afghanistan, and I think a lot of people have been saying, what's been the point in the last 20 years? For those people who went there, to serve in a mission and, to fight for Queen and country with a view that, they were doing something that had, an end goal, if you like. And at the end of all of that, 20 years later, for the people they were fighting against to simply literally walk up the street and reclaim the entire country. I think a lot of people were surprised. So, of course, there's an impact there, isn't there, on the serving personnel. So I've had a chat with Jay, and I'm going to bring that to you now because it's an eye-opener. It's certainly very, very interesting, and it's very brutal in its honesty as well. I don't often put sort of trigger warnings at the start of the conversations, but sometimes I think if there are particular things that people might be triggered by, they probably want a heads up that it's coming that way. And Jay talks about his experience on the front line, if you like, and the reasons why he found himself having mental health difficulties, with descriptions of some of the incidents that he came across. It's relatively brief, and I'm sure if you have not had experience of those sorts of things, you might think that's just a description of it. I am aware that for some people who maybe have had more in-depth experience, shall we say, at that time, may well find that bit a little bit more troubling. So when you get a sense of that, a quick skip forward might serve you better, because I really do hope you can hear the rest of the conversation anyway. Jay Wheeler then, guest. Let's speak to him on this week's Mental Health Monday. Jay, how are you getting on, pal? Good to see you.
Thank you very much for having me, Mick. Thank you. Really appreciate it, buddy.
We have spoken in the past, Jay, about your experience, life in the military, life back on Civvy Street, and so much of your mental health journey has been based around your military experience. Of course, we've seen just in the last 7 days images of Afghanistan back on our TV screens, the return of the Taliban, many, many questions about what the future of that country has in store, but also questions around our involvement in Afghanistan in the first place. And for someone who was there, for someone whose life was impacted so much by it, this must have been a week like no other for you.
Yeah, it has. because since I came back from Afghanistan, went out in 2011, came back in 2012, and within 6 months later, you know, I was a complete wreck. It's and then for the last 5 years, you know, I've done several types of different therapy, about 4 in total so far. And it's been a slow process to try and bring some normality into my daily life. And it's been hard over the last couple of years. And then seeing all the Afghan news over the last couple of days, you know, because psychologically you try and put yourself in a better place. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last 5 years. It gets a little bit easier, but I'm still haunted by it every day. And it's now being blown up on the news. It just almost sends you back to square one again, because when you start focusing on everything that kind of made you ill in the first place, I think of my friend Zach, who sadly lost his life out there, and I've learned to live with that on a daily basis. And when I have thoughts of Zach, you know, I take the thought on, and then I kind of, you know, say to myself, okay, this is it. Now I need to just carry on with my day. And I've been doing it. But since this all started, it just brings it all back. It brings it all back. I can even smell it. You know, I can smell Afghanistan. And it's not just about losing Zach. It's about all the other boys and girls as well that you know, that served and never came back. I saw soldiers with my own eyes get blown up, and I saw body parts basically just come out of a plume of dust. And then I saw my friend Zach shot with small arms fire. And I heard him on the radio dying. I heard him dying. So you can understand why it's been so difficult for me over the last 5 years to try and process all of that, you know. And it just comes back now. It's come back. It's not. I'm not sad about how I'm feeling. What I'm sad about is all the work, and it was hard work. Believe me, I was out there for 6 months. I volunteered to do an extra month, so I ended up doing 7 months. And it's hard. Believe me, it's hard. Like, I've done several tours of Kosovo, several tours of Iraq. Admittedly, my second Iraq was a little intense. But Afghanistan, it was every day, you know, and I was based in the green zone. So I weren't based at Camp Bastion or nothing like that. I was based in the green zone, and the green zone is basically in the thick of it. They put you in the thick of it. And I was there for 7 months. We were getting shot at on a daily basis. Numerous times a day we were getting shot at. We were getting RPG'd. Numerous times throughout the day we were getting our, you know, rocket propelled grenade. And also, whilst that's going on, the Taliban are out laying IEDs and trying to get us that way. You know, I tell my friends, you know, a lot of people seem to think that, you know, in the Middle East, stupid is not the word, but not very educated. That's it, not very educated. And they'd be wrong, because I've spent time with Afghan nationals. I've spent time with the Afghan army and the Afghan police. And I've heard all these stories when I was out there, all these stories about the Taliban. And they're intelligent. They're intelligent. And they're very, like, their religion, it's like they live it 24/7, and the Taliban obviously interpret what they want to interpret via the Quran. And so they believe what they're reading, they believe it. So they're saying, these are the people that you're dealing with, Mick. This is the mentality of the Taliban. We had, in our patrol base, PB, we had a small unit of Afghan soldiers, we had a small unit of Afghan police. Now, we were literally about 200 yards from the next village. And the Taliban went to this village. They pulled the police officer out of his house. They stripped him naked. They beat him. And then they tied his ankles to one vehicle and tied his wrists to another vehicle. And you obviously know where I'm going with this. So then they, and it tore apart the body. That wasn't good enough. Then what the Taliban did was they took the body parts, and threw them in the irrigation ditch. And the irrigation ditch is, are basically a human toilet. That's what it is. It's a human toilet. All because they found out that he was working with us. And that's what they did. And this is why Afghan nationals are scared of the Taliban, because they don't just come in and go, you've been working with the infidels, this, that, and the other. We're shooting your head. It's not like that. It's almost like they take pleasure in making, examples in a way where you're going to be scared. You're going to be scared to want to work with the British Army. You're going to be scared to be even part of that. And I think now, again, because of what's happened over the last few days, the people of Afghanistan must be absolutely petrified, because all they're thinking is that if the Taliban find out you worked with us, the infidel, well, it's and they, like I said, they will torture you, and they will, they'll kill you, but they'll just do it in front of your family and things like that. And this is the advantage that they have over us, because as British soldiers serving in Afghanistan, we have certain rules of engagement. We have mass amount of kit to wear when we're going on patrol. The Taliban, we was fighting the Taliban, and they had AK-47s, some pouches of ammunition, wearing a dish dash and sandals. And these guys would fight all day, Yeah, I'm sorry, I may have slid off slightly there.
No,
Mick.
not at all, Jay. Because I think actually exploring that journey, sort of where your head's at with it all, I think is really interesting. Thanks for being so honest as well. It's interesting you talk about that. There was a press conference that was held, and the Taliban, they almost came across as this new sort of liberally minded government, and they were going, if you work with us, that's fine. If you work with that's fine. We've got no issue. If you're a girl, you can go to school. If you're a woman, you can go to work, as long as it's within the rules of the Quran. What did you make of that? Did you sort of roll your eyes a little bit, or did you think that things had changed in the last 20 years?
Well, I mean, and I wanted to bring this up anyway with you. The Taliban are saying that at the moment, right? Now, it could be that it's just their schemy way, to go, yeah, we'll treat everyone okay, don't worry about it. We don't want another influx of British soldiers and American soldiers coming into our country. We got this, and we're going to, that could well be the case. But the flip side to that is, because they've caused so much damage and hurt over these years, I think it's. Do they want the British and the Americans to get involved again? Because they weren't. They lost their power. I mean, everything that they had, they were going underground. It was all underground. So the flip side to it is that they may actually well mean it. They may actually well mean that, you know, we won't treat girls, we won't treat women, you know, in this way again, you know, and that's a possibility, you know, because they I think they want, everything has got to be about their law. Yeah, everything's going to be about their law. But I think if in order for this to work, in a sense, they're going to have to put all these the old ways, you know, of treating certain people in Afghanistan. They need to maybe put that, you know, put that to bed. But you know me, I personally, I wouldn't trust them as far as you can throw them. It's as simple as that.
Sure. Can I ask you, Jay, in terms of the mental health journey, something we've explored a lot on the program of former soldiers and what they've gone through, and it's always really interesting to hear about support or the lack of support that's out there as well. Can I ask you about, because obviously so much of what we've spoken about it has been about almost the visceral nature of what you experience, the sense overload, if you like, that sometimes can take place, and about how, and you've spoken about this before, and about how that can sort of come back to you even if you're not in that same location. Can I bring a conversation around to like the mission, if you like, because my concern is for a lot of people who went over there who have sought therapy or have sought means of dealing with what they've seen, have at the back of their mind always thought, but at least we got rid of the Taliban and at least we put people on a path to freedom. Do you think there's a danger that actually people's recovery from those experiences could potentially be held back because now the very foundation of what they're hoping to build that recovery on, i.e., well, at least we X, Y, or Z, seems to have been snapped away so very quickly, like literally within 7 days, it's been gone. Do you think that will be particularly damaging for some soldiers about how they then view just literally how they've based their recovery, if you like, from the experience they've had?
Yeah, definitely. Because I felt the same over the last 7 days. Yeah, it's difficult, Mick. Like I said, because once you start seeing these images on the news, everything comes back. Like even stuff that you'd almost kind of blocked out, everything comes back. And like you said, it came back at such a speed. It definitely rattled my mental health. Because again, you've got this, you come back and you go, you know what? We lost boys and girls. This happened, that happened. But we were doing it to make positive changes, and you know, and that's what you lay back on. You know, that's the moment when you say, you know what? Yeah, I served my Queen and I served my country, and I brought a positive change that I could bring. But now, you know, people lost their lives out in Afghanistan. Soldiers lost their lives in Afghanistan. The fortunate ones that didn't and came back, majority all had mental health issues after returning from Afghanistan. Many soldiers, you know, on returning from Afghanistan have committed suicide. Many soldiers, you know, I said this the other day, the mind that I went out with into Afghanistan wasn't the same mind that came back. And, you know, there was times, so many times where I didn't want to be alive, and I couldn't shake what I saw, what I experienced. I just couldn't shake it out of my head. I couldn't find a distraction. And it was killing me. And I felt, you know, this is going to sound crazy, but I felt guilty for actually coming home alive, because there was a lot of younger soldiers that their life was ended out there. You know, you've got a lot of soldiers that return from Afghanistan in prison, you know, because this Afghanistan, and people will say, yeah, but, you know, you signed on a dotted line. I signed on a dotted line so I can make a difference, so I could make a positive change. That's what I joined the army for. And I got to do that on many occasions. But Afghanistan wasn't about, you know, in a sense it was about going out into the communities and trying, you know, helping them and hoping us. But also, you know, it was like a survival course for 7 months, you know, and you can't go up to the gates of your patrol base and look out and see Afghanistan and know what's around the corner, know that there's things on the ground that could blow you into bits and pieces. You can't get to that gate and go, oh, no, I'm not going out. This is your job. This is what you've trained to do. And patrols, you know, is when they got us. They always, you know, they'd always get us on our patrols. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of ex-squaddies now that are traumatized from Afghanistan. Their head's going to be rattling, because mine is. And, you know, we just got to be careful, because this is bigger than just the Taliban taking control. This is about the cannon fodder. This is about, you know, what is it mentally done to these people, you know?
I wonder. Sorry, I was going to say, Jay, because I wonder whether or not people talk about, you know, people who sign up to the military and sort of the expectations that are placed upon them. And I think even it's been hinted at in recent years around maybe there's younger generation who are less keen to sign up. And you obviously signed up for an experience, and I think you've spoken positively as well in the past about sort of the experience of being in the military and the sort of the opportunities that you get, albeit that come with these sort of very difficult circumstances. But I wonder as well, that's another thing, that any mindset of any soldier in the future will be very much changed by, you know, the last great endeavor of the British Armed Forces in Afghanistan. Ultimately, you know, ends up looking like almost like a Vietnam situation, which would always be the thing you sort of read about or heard about in movies when you were a kid growing up, but you could never sort of imagine what that might look or feel like. And then it feels as if we've almost been presented with that same sort of thing, based on the experience there. And I wonder whether or not that mindset will change now within the armed forces, and whether or not they'll have to deal with that now, knowing that there's a very recent experience which says, here's the plan, here's the mission, but ultimately it might not go according to plan. And I guess when you're in the middle of the mission, you can't be thinking this isn't going to work, this is not going to happen, because you wouldn't step out the door, would you? You wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. Well, that's a big shift, isn't it? And that's one that probably the military will have to deal with.
Yeah. I think the military, you know, the British Army is definitely going to have problems when it comes to recruiting now because of this. You know, I mean, I joined in '97. I mean, I left school with no qualifications or anything like that. When I was a young boy, I always wanted to be a policeman, and I didn't do well in school, so that went out the window. And then several years later, you know, I just thought, well, I can maybe achieve the same things I wanted to achieve in the police force, in the army. And that's what I got to do. And, you know, I did 15 years service. Now, throughout all that time, believe me, I didn't have much growing up as a kid, and my mum didn't have confidence in me that I would pass the basic training in the army. You know, I had a lot of odds against me. And I went to basic training, and I not only completed basic training, but I achieved the best recruit award from basic training. And I'd gone on then to join my regiment, did operational tours, did some inter-squadron boxing, I was part of the regimental running team and cross-country team, all that kind of stuff. I am so proud the fact that I did it. You know, and I achieved I met some wonderful people, had some great mates. Got my medals and so forth. But when you then go back 7 days, the last 7 days, you're not thinking about all the positive changes that you've done in your army career. You're not thinking about all the good things that you've done. All you're thinking about, well, all I'm thinking about is Afghanistan. My conversation is, you know, all that doesn't even matter. Everything that I achieved in the army doesn't matter at this point, because by the time I got to Afghanistan, I was full flow of my career. You know, I was just about to get my sergeant rank, and then Afghanistan, and everything that we had to contend with in Afghanistan, physically and mentally, it's ruined me, Mick. And that's the truth of it, mate. I know now, you know, I have to take antidepressants in the morning. I have to take sedatives at night, else I can't sleep. I'm haunted by it every single day. Not, you know, doesn't matter whether it's Christmas Day, doesn't matter whether it's whatever. I'm haunted by it every day. I don't think, and this last 7 days, I don't think about all the good things that I achieved in the army. I think about that nightmare of an operational tour, which was Afghanistan. Yes, you know, I've got my dog, and I got to go out and do all that with her, and I've got my artwork, and I, you know, maybe I'll go out for an hour, and I'll go and spray the love tag somewhere, and then I'll come straight home. You know, I've got really close friends, my close family, you know, that support me and stay in touch with me and stuff. But I've withdrawn from the person that I was who went out to Afghanistan. Not the same person that came back. No, not the same person that came back. And I've just recently finished a coping skills program, therapy program, about 3 weeks ago. Which was really good, but now they've put me forward for some high intensity type therapy, which I believe I'm starting the next couple of months. At the moment, I don't think I'll ever be at peace with what I saw and experienced in Afghanistan. I think I'm going to be like that until my dying day. And that's just the flip side to, you know, because I chose to join the army. I wanted to join the army. And you know, Mick, as well, I got to say, every operational tour that I went on, I was always looking forward to it. I looked forward to it because that's what I was good at. I was good at that type of soldiering. Not back in your base and camp back in the UK, or, you know, I was an operational soldier. Yeah, but it just at the moment, it just feels like everything that we did in Afghanistan has not worked out at all at the moment.
I totally appreciate your honesty on that one, Jay, and I hope that as you sort of continue in that journey that you've been on before everything that's happened in the last week, and I know that this week has been particularly sort of troubling, that recovery continue and those sort of conversations continue, because I know you've inspired a lot of people with the way that you've gone about your recovery, and we'll touch on the artwork in a little bit as well. That, you know, and this isn't me being a psychologist or anything, but I would say that if there have been failings, they were not your failings. You know, if there were the wrong decisions, and long after you got off the plane and were back in the UK, decisions that have been taken by various different people, you know, I would say that you did everything that you were empowered to do, and you know, you did that in the professional way that you did it, and your track record absolutely proves that. You know, so don't think that this is a personal failing on your parts. That's what I would say, because I think to everybody, nobody's thinking, well, the people to blame are those soldiers who are putting their lives on the line every day. I think actually, and I think we've probably seen a hint of this as well, there's a great deal of sympathy towards those soldiers, because there's a thing that we do in the UK where we say, well, doesn't matter if you agree with the conflict, you support those who are there because they're putting their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing whereby people will still do that, because there's almost a sense of, well, we didn't necessarily want to be out in another country fighting in a conflict, but fair play to those who did it, knowing what they were going through as well. So I think there will be still a good deal of warmth to people like yourself, because you were doing what you were dealing with, the situation, you know, on a pragmatic basis to a certain extent, and a chaotic basis that you've described as well. So absolutely, I think you can still very much hold your head high that you did everything within your power. And if there were wider failings, that I think people would urge you not to take it as a personal slight on your own career and your own achievements that you've listed there, and clearly show you to be, you know, an upstanding professional and one who should be proud of things that they've achieved. But I think hopefully through the continuation of the therapies and the counseling services that you're going through, that might frame it within, you know, a positive way. And hopefully as we move away from this period of time, you'll be able to see that. But you talked about your artwork, and I just wondered whether or not you'd had time to think about that. For people who don't know, Jay goes around with this love tag that he sprays on. I was going to say famous buildings there, but I won't say that. Prominent locations, that's what we'll say. Prominent locations, the love tag. And it was born out of, and we've spoken about this before, Jay, and I'll put a link to the previous podcast up on the podcast, about the word love and how you sort of totally embrace that in terms of your recovery and in terms of how you wanted to portray yourself onto the world. And I wonder whether or not you're going to start a process of thinking about how you sort of upscale that, or if does it change, do you think, or to think about your attitude to why you do it, and maybe things that have happened over the course of the last month or so, do they make you think, do I need to do it more? Does the font need to be bigger? Do I need to use brighter colors? Have you thought how you might sort of interpret artistically these sorts of emotions?
Yeah, I think like the reason I do it is because, firstly, all the hate and the despair that I've came across over the years, I just wanted to kind of put love out there in a way that we all, we can read the word, we know what it means. And I just thought we need more love in this world. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but we do. And, and I just wasn't seeing enough of it. And it wasn't just, it wasn't me in Liverpool going, right, I don't see enough love. I see loads of love in Liverpool. I'm talking about worldwide. and some of my travels took me worldwide, and you can see it on a bigger scale. So that's why I decided to do what I do, and every day that I go out, I do it, and it's fantastic for my mental health. It really is, because I know that I'm doing something that not only just benefits me, benefits people that actually see when they see the love tank. But just on your last point there, for the last couple of days, I've been going out more and spraying the love tag more, because people need to see it. There's a lot of places, and I've put the love tag in places what are not so obvious, and it's about just coming across it. But the last couple of days, I've been putting them in really prominent places. Like I did the city centre the other day, and I did up by Church Street in the middle, where all the hustle and bustle, and I put some around Bold Street and around the city, because I was sitting here thinking, you know what, I've got to go out there, and I've got to go out and get some love down and get people to see, look, I know we're in a world, there's chaos going on, not just with Afghanistan, but COVID and everything else, and the world's, some of the countries have got wildfires and, and floods and this, and this is more imperative now that I go out there and get that word out. I don't feel the need to enlarge the stencil. I don't feel the need to, go out and put certain statements up. It's always only ever been about that word love, because if you want change, right? With change comes hope. With change comes hope. With hope comes love and understanding. And again, that may sound cheesy, but it's true. If you haven't got love, you ain't got the other stuff that you can build on. And if someone said to me now, we'll fly you out to Afghanistan so you can put a love tag on one of those, I'd do it, because that is for the local nationals. That's for those ordinary people like you and I, that just want to live their life with a family. I would do something like that, because people need to see it. Yeah. It's. I'm not doing it to become the next street artist or anything like that. I'm doing it. Well, my faith has been so strong over the last 5 years. And I tell people, well, I'm on a mission from God, and that's why I go out and do what I do. And God has used everything that happened to me over the years, and then Afghanistan, and he's gone, right, because you remember, I wanted to join the police. I wanted to, and join the army to help people. I didn't go, you know what, I want to go serve in Kosovo, or I want to do. My primary thought was I want to go and help people, and I think all those experiences that I've had has now brought me to this point, to why I go out and do what I do.
And I think people listening to you now, Jay, will notice sort of a change in tone as well. That you almost sort of grew about 3 foot taller as you started talking about your artwork and about your passion for it as well. I think, and people might not be able to see the smile on your face now, but actually it's so telling that there's, and we often talk, when we talk about mental health, about finding that thing that gives you that hope, that aspiration, that sense of purpose, that sense of mission, and it quite clear for yourself that's something which is the case now, and hopefully will continue to be the case, both here. If one day we can see that image in Kabul, absolutely, that would be really quite something, and actually quite telling in terms of the progress that you've made in that time as well. Jay, our time is coming to an end, but thank you so much once again for your absolute honesty. Absolutely amazing as ever to catch up with you. Whenever we've spoken, you've always been so open with your own sort of personal journey. And I truly believe that when you have these conversations, there will be many people who will go, that's how I feel. Or Jay's saying something which I never had the bravery to say, or felt that I didn't have the words to sort of communicate. So, I think every time you open your mouth as well on this subject, I think your good work and the mission continues as well.
Can I just say, Mick, as well, just before we go, when I had the first breakdown, and and I've discussed it, I've told you this before, but I went through a period where I was hoarding loads of rubbish, and I was hoarding my own bottles of urine, and my home was a horrible, horrible environment to live in. But I sort of adapted to it, and it became my comfort bubble, as mad as that may sound. But from 2016, I got a lot of help from SAFA, which is the military charity, and they helped me get funding. And my home is now a beautiful home, and I love my home. And every time I go out, I always look forward to walking back through my front door, because my home is if you would have seen it back then, you would never have thought it was the same place. So I just want people to know that, when you're in the thick of depression, you don't really see a way out. You don't see a light. I just want to say that the light is there. You've just got to have faith, and you'll see the light, and it's not all about it. We can't allow our mental illness to define who we are. It's an illness, and we all need to remember that. So anyone that's struggling, I'm sure you've got like numbers and stuff on your web, Mick. I just want to say to people, if you're struggling, don't give up, because it and again, it sounds cheesy, but things will get better. They'll become more livable, and that's what it's about. It's about being livable and being able to at least function on a daily basis. So, and Mick, you've had me on your show several times, and I just want to say thank you to you. Thank you. Because you highlight what is at the core of society, as we, mental health is like, I always say mental health is a gift and a curse at the same time. So look, I just appreciate what you do, Mick, and thank you. Thanks again for having me on your show, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate those words. Jay Wheeler, love Art Global. I'll put links up on to Jay's artwork on the wording to this one as well. Stand by. At the end of the podcast, you always get all the local services, some phone numbers as well that Jay mentioned as well. He mentioned SAFA as well for former Army personnel as well. If you type that into any Google search engine, that will come up as well. And I'll point people in that direction too. Jay Wheeler, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us on the program.
Thank you, Mick. God bless you, brother.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999.